Welcome to Newsbeacon, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. In a world where global politics often moves at a very slow pace, where decisions are debated endlessly and progress can feel glacial, it's rare to see a country break away from the pack and set its own course. But that's exactly what France has done. In recent months, France has suddenly taken the lead with a series of bold, unexpected actions that have caught the attention of the entire world. On August 22, 2025, President Emmanuel Macron is not just talking about change, he's actively pushing forward ideas that could completely transform Europe's role on the global stage. From proposing new security plans that challenge old alliances, to launching independent talks with countries outside the usual EU framework, France is making moves that few expected. These actions have surprised even France's closest friends in the European Union, leaving many leaders scrambling to keep up. The Élysée Palace is making it clear, the old ways of doing things no longer work for today's complex and fast-moving problems. France believes it's time for a new approach. This strong, assertive approach is a direct response to a rapidly changing world, where the United States is rethinking its alliances, and China's power and influence are growing at an unprecedented rate, shifting the balance of global power. Macron has decided that France won't wait for others to decide Europe's future. Instead, France is stepping up to lead, determined to shape the continent's destiny. The most surprising move of all, France is suggesting it could share its nuclear weapons with other European countries, a proposal that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. At the same time, France is opening direct talks with China about climate change, trade, and technology, signaling a willingness to engage with all major powers. These are not small changes. They are major shifts that challenge the way things have been done since the end of the Cold War, and they force the world to reconsider old assumptions. Now the world is watching France closely, rethinking its role and influence in a new era of uncertainty and opportunity. In this video, we'll break down France's ambitious new plan, from sharing nuclear weapons to leading the way in clean energy and technology, and we'll see how Washington, Beijing, and other parts of Europe are reacting to this bold new direction. The world is asking, is this the beginning of a new era, with France leading a more confident, independent Europe into the future? At the heart of France's new foreign policy is a bold vision: European strategic independence. This concept is about more than just national pride. It's a call for Europe to chart its own course in a rapidly changing world. The core idea is that Europe must be able to protect its interests and defend its values without depending on outside powers, whether for security, technology, or resources. What was once dismissed as a uniquely French ambition has now become a central topic across the continent. Recent global crises, shifting alliances, and new demands from the US have convinced many European leaders that autonomy is no longer optional. It's essential. President Macron's vision now resonates in Brussels, Berlin, and Warsaw, sparking debates and new policies at the highest levels of government. The message is clear: Europe can no longer afford to let others take charge of its security. The world is too unpredictable, and Europe must be ready to act on its own if necessary. This doesn't mean leaving NATO behind. Instead, the goal is to build a stronger, more capable European pillar within the alliance, one that can operate independently when the situation demands it. The February 2025 Munich Security Conference marked a turning point. There, the US made it clear: Europe must step up and take greater responsibility for its own defense and stability. But strategic autonomy is about more than just military strength. It's also about economic resilience, ensuring Europe's prosperity is not at the mercy of global shocks or foreign decisions. That means securing reliable energy sources, investing in renewables, and not relying on others for critical supplies like gas or oil. It also means developing and controlling advanced technologies, so Europe can compete globally and protect its digital future. France is urging Europe to reduce its dependence on vital imports, from rare earth minerals to semiconductors, and to build up its own industries for the challenges ahead. The message is ambitious: Europe must be secure, prosperous, and innovative, on its own terms and for its own future. France is challenging the EU to invest together, to build a future where Europe stands as a strong, united power, capable of shaping its destiny in a complex world. The most surprising part of France's new plan is its offer to extend its nuclear protection to other European nations. Historically, France's nuclear weapons were strictly for its own defense. Now, Macron is open to sharing the nuclear burden. This idea has shocked friends and rivals, but leaders in Germany, Poland, and the Baltic states are showing real interest. For Europe's eastern side, a French nuclear promise offers safety not dependent on Washington. Macron's move is a direct response to doubts about the US nuclear protection and shows Europe must take its own defense seriously. The path is full of political and practical problems, but the discussion itself marks a huge change in how Europe thinks about security. France's bold offer has made every European capital think about the future of European defense. France is also making its own diplomatic path with China, often moving ahead of the EU or US. In March 2025, France and China confirmed their climate promises, just as the US left the Paris Agreement. French officials have traveled to Beijing, pushing for a stronger EU-China climate partnership and direct talks on trade. Paris believes talking with Beijing is essential, even as the EU calls China a major competitor. France's approach sometimes causes problems within the EU, but it also opens doors for future talks. For the US, France's diplomacy shows that Europe won't simply follow Washington's lead on China. By talking with China on its own terms, France aims to protect European interests, even if it means differing from its usual friend. France is using its nuclear energy knowledge to lead Europe toward energy independence. With much of Europe still relying on outside suppliers, France's civilian nuclear power offers a way to rely less on Russian gas. Paris is promoting nuclear power as a stable, low-carbon, independent energy source for the EU. This push could create a more connected, self-sufficient European energy system and strengthen industrial ties with the US. French-led investments, like Orano's uranium facility in Tennessee, show how energy safety can deepen cooperation across the Atlantic. France's plan is a practical use of strategic independence, building a Europe less open to political pressure. It's a long-term investment in self-rule and strength for the continent. France's relationship with China is also being tested by tough trade disagreements. After the EU put taxes on Chinese electric cars, Beijing responded by investigating French brandy, a direct hit to a key French export. Macron personally stepped in, getting a solution, and showing the value of direct talks. But the brandy problem is just one part of a larger EU-China trade puzzle, with ongoing investigations into pork, dairy, and medical devices. France, as a major exporter, is on the front lines, balancing the need to protect European industries with the desire to keep access to the huge Chinese market. The challenge: stand firm on fair trade but keep diplomatic conversations going. How France handles this delicate balance will show if its independent China plan is truly effective. The outcome will shape Europe's wider economic relationship with Beijing. US-European relations are under growing stress, as Washington pushes for a dramatic shift in the partnership's balance. The old sense of unity is being tested by new demands and unexpected moves from the American side, leaving many European leaders feeling uneasy about the future. At the 2025 Munich Security Conference, the US stunned its European allies by insisting that defense spending should rise to 5% of GDP, more than double the current NATO target. This demand sent shockwaves through European capitals, where leaders are already struggling with economic pressures and public skepticism about military budgets. But the real turning point came when the US began direct peace talks on Ukraine, excluding European leaders who have invested significant diplomatic and financial resources in supporting Kyiv. This move was seen as a clear signal that Washington was willing to act alone, even on issues at the heart of European security. French President Emmanuel Macron responded forcefully, declaring that only Ukraine has the right to decide its own future. He warned that any agreement reached without Europe's involvement would be unacceptable, and stressed the importance of European voices in shaping the continent's destiny. These developments have reinforced Macron's long-standing argument that Europe must build its own strategic independence. The events have shown that relying solely on American leadership can leave Europe vulnerable to sudden policy shifts. The risks of depending too heavily on a US agenda that can change overnight are now painfully obvious to European policymakers. There is a growing realization that Europe must be prepared to defend its own interests, even if that means standing apart from Washington at times. For France, this debate isn't about being anti-American. Instead, it's about ensuring that Europe has a real voice and a seat at the table when decisions are made about its own security and future. The ultimate goal is clear. Europe must never again be reduced to a topic of discussion when its own safety and sovereignty are at stake. European leaders are determined to shape their own destiny. The US's recent actions have served as a wake-up call, pushing Europe to take more responsibility for its own security and future direction. France's bold moves have started a big discussion across the EU, but there's a growing agreement that the current situation can't last. Germany and Poland are increasingly agreeing with France on building a stronger European defense identity. The idea of a European part in NATO is gaining support, even as worries remain about the US acting alone. The French nuclear sharing idea is dividing, appealing to some, worrying to others, but it's forcing a real conversation about Europe's security future. Eastern countries see a French nuclear promise as more reliable. Others worry about things getting worse and losing control. The debate itself marks a major change in European thinking. The US's recent actions have pushed EU nations closer together out of need. France has provided the idea. Now the EU must decide how to build a more independent, strong Europe. As of August 22, 2025, France is shaking the foundations of the world order. Macron's push for strategic independence, nuclear sharing, and independent diplomacy is a big plan to create a strong, united Europe. Friends and rivals are surprised. The time of Europe being a junior partner is ending. The road ahead is tough, agreement is hard, and economic and political problems are many. But outside pressures, especially from Washington, have created a push for change that may not be stopped. The question is no longer if Europe should be more independent, but how quickly it can get there. France's actions are forcing the US and China to treat Europe as a true, important player. Macron's boldness may be remembered as the spark that woke Europe up to its own potential. The choices made now will decide if Europe rises to this historic moment and creates a new future on the world stage.